Greetings. My name is Devendra Das Sarma. I am excited to participate in STC India conference, even though it's virtual. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. I will talk about innovations in memory and storage with PCI Express and Compute Express Link, basically what I call load store IO. Here is the agenda for today. We will talk about interconnects, especially load store interconnects, as an important pillar in the compute and storage landscape. Then we will talk about the evolution of load store interconnects and the new Compute Express Link, which is poised to be a game changer in the industry. We will discuss in depth how CXL as an open interconnect slot will drive innovations in the memory and storage space. Some of these will be future looking and are just my view of how things could evolve. The picture here shows interconnects at different levels at the data center or cloud infrastructure looking from outside in. Other segments such as edge computing or on-premise computing are using the cloud infrastructure concepts. A data center consists of pods. Each pod consists of racks of servers, and each rack consists of several chassis or several what we call drawers. A drawer can be, or a chassis can be a compute drawer, or it can be a memory or storage drawer. And depending on the type of need you have, you categorize them or you apply the right amount of resources there. Fundamentally, each server in the rack is a single domain or a node, and it is contained within that chassis or the drawer. And it can have one or more CPUs. It has its own memory and it has its own IO devices, things like GPU, things of that nature. And that gets connected to the networking fabric through a NIC. And today, none of the memory or IO resources are shared between the nodes. They're all captive to that node. Those resources, whether it is memory, whether it is GPU, whether it is compute, they're all captive within that particular node. So this is resulting in stranded or overtaxed resources and inefficient use of the data center capacity. So for example, some nodes might have unused memory, whereas some other nodes could take advantage of more memory so that they could run larger tasks or larger VMs. The goal here is to get better efficiency with CXL so that we can move resources or tasks around seamlessly and securely at a rack or even at a pod level. This will result in better power efficiency, better performance, and better total cost of ownership, TCO. And we are making good strides towards that goal from a CXL, Compute Express Link interconnect perspective, and we still have a long way to go, and we'll talk more about that. So the picture here shows the explosion of data. This is a graph from IDC. Things like cloud, 5G, data from the sensors, automotive, IoT, all of these applications are basically driving a lot, they're generating a lot of data. And at the same time, we're also seeing aggressive time to gain insights in real time for this on this large data set. As the data volume grows and workload requirements shift to address new business opportunities, that's putting a lot of pressure on the underlying infrastructure. And we have seen our customers struggle with these new challenges at scale. We have to meet these scaling challenges. Latency, bandwidth, capacity, they're all important to meet the customer demands with the rapid innovations that are going on. Fundamentally, we have to move the data faster. We have to store more data as it gets generated. We have to process all of that data very quickly, seamlessly, efficiently, and most importantly, securely. We also have to determine where in the storage hierarchy to place the data and how much of the data to place. In each of these aspects, interconnects are playing a critical role in the compute continuum. Let us look at the evolution of PCI Express, the underlying interconnect technology driving different types of load store IO interconnect. PCI Express debuted with the release of PCIe 1.0 specification in 2003. We double the data rate every generation while maintaining full backward compatibility as shown in the table and the diagram here on the right hand side. Since PCI Express has been evolving in a cost-effective, scalable, power-efficient, and fully backward-compatible manner, it has become the ubiquitous I/O across the entire compute continuum. This spans from PC, handheld, workstation, server, cloud, enterprise, HPC, embedded, IoT, automotive. You have one stack, one silicon, but capable of working seamlessly across multiple form factors across this entire compute continuum. Different widths are there for different types of devices, by 1 through by 16. Full compatibility, backward compatibility ensures that a by 16 Gen 5 device, which is capable of running at 32 giga transfers per second, interoperates with a by 1 Gen 1 device at 2.5 giga transfers per second. We have multiple PCIe devices that are at the leading edge of this transition. Networking XPUs are some of the leading usages. PCIe supports multiple protocols through its PHY called alternate protocol. The ones with coherency and memory semantics are the leading consumers of this higher data rate as the compute capability keeps increasing with a given power envelope in keeping with Moore's law and Dennard scaling. Storage is steadily migrating to PCIe due to its predictable performance cadence with low latency. This can be seen in the IDC graph on the lower left side. NVMe has gained wide traction. The picture in the middle shows how PCIe results in lower latency and less components delivering better performance due to elimination of intermediate layers. PCI Express I/O virtualization is heavily deployed for storage applications. As shown here, this enables multiple VMs to physically share the storage resources, resulting in better efficiency while still providing strict isolation guarantees. Reliability, availability, and serviceability through hot plug are critical for storage. PCIe enhanced its RAS offering through enhanced downstream port containment to ensure that one SSD failure or the asynchronous removal of an SSD does not impact others despite the load store access pattern. One of the compelling value propositions of PCI Express is one specification, one stack, one silicon, and full backward compatibility. However, in spite of all of this, it supports multiple form factors. This is expected as a handheld device, has a very different form factor and power needs than say a storage chassis in a data center. That is key to PCI Express's adoption across all market segments. Now let's switch gears and talk about Compute Express Link as a new class of interconnect. The picture here on the top right shows the view of the world with PCI Express. So in this world, there are two types of memory. Memory that is attached to the CPU, things like DRAM, those are mapped into the coherent memory space. So data consistency there is guaranteed through hardware, right? Cache coherency takes care of data consistency. Now the memory, on the other hand, that is attached to a PCI Express device, it's uncached memory, or it is a memory mapped IO space. So that memory, while it also has load store semantics, you cannot really cache that data in the system. You have to, for every access, you have to go to the device and make that access. So when a CPU wants to access, for example, the DRAM memory, it can simply cache the data, access it from its cache. Somebody else needs it, it can just do a cache to cache transfer. If it has been updated later on, whoever has the latest copy can do a write back. Data is guaranteed to be consistent. On the other hand, if there is memory attached to an IO device, you cannot cache that data, and you have to go to that device to access that data every single time. Similarly, when an IO device needs to access the memory that is attached to the CPU, which is known as the write back memory, cacheable memory, it does that through direct memory access, DMA. What happens is that every single access goes to the root port in the CPU, and the CPU basically takes care of and ensuring that it gets the latest coherent snapshot of the data, or in the case of a write, it makes sure that it makes that write visible architecturally to the coherent domain. Now, this is known as producer-consumer ordering model. It has worked really well. Works, been very successful for the last 2 decades. Effectively, if you're doing traditional storage or you're moving data across a network, bulk kind of transfers. It's very efficient, power efficient, offers a lot good latency, bandwidth, and all of that. And we definitely want to preserve those usages. Now, there is a different type of usage model that is evolving within this evolving compute landscape, and that is where we are seeing a lot of accelerators that are coming up that want to basically coordinate with the host processor or coordinate amongst themselves on a much more finer grained basis. So the existing PCIe mechanism needs to be enhanced to support that kind of usage model. So that means that the memory that is attached to the CPU needs to be cacheable in the devices. And by that same token, the device memory that exists needs to be cacheable by other devices as well as by the CPU. So effectively, the coherency or the memory semantics looks the same, whether you're doing it from the CPU point of view or whether you're doing it from the device point of view. That enables a lot more new class of usage model, which is the heterogeneous computing and disaggregation. And this enables your memory resources anywhere in the system to be shared efficiently between these compute elements because of the memory and coherency semantics. As a result, you have much better movement of operands and the results. You don't have to transfer entire data structures. You can do much more finer grain level of sharing. Only the part of the data that has changed really needs to move. Compute Express Link basically solves that problem, right? What it enables to do is it enables devices to cache the memory, and also it enables the memory that is attached to the device to be mapped into the coherent space. So because of that, because of the latter, you can also use CXL as a memory bandwidth and capacity expansion, and also support memory tiering, and we'll see more of that. Compute Express Link, it's an open industry standard, 150 plus member companies. All the CPU vendors are there, all the GPU vendors are there, all the memory and storage vendors are there. There is tremendous momentum in this ecosystem, and you can see that there have been several interop announcements that have happened with our own CPUs. In short, CXL is poised to be a game changer in the industry. It got introduced as a consortium in 2019, and by now it's the momentum is just tremendous. So Compute Express Link, it runs on the PCIe infrastructure, which what it means is that it runs on PCIe 5.0 PHY. We start with 32 gig because these are high performance devices that we are targeting. So we don't want to really go back to the older speed, right? Although it means that, backwards compatibility means you can run downshift to 8 gig and 16 gig. Similarly, for the widths that we support, we go for the higher width by 4, by 8, and by 16. Full plug and play capable. So what it means is that in this picture over here, you can have it's a by 16 PCI slot. If you plug in a by 16 PCI device, it works as PCI Express. If you plug in a by 16 CXL device, it works as CXL. Both the stacks are present in the CPU. They both go through the PCIe 5.0 PHY. So as a result, and then PCIe specification defines alternate protocols. So those get negotiated right up front. So if both sides speak CXL, it will be CXL. If one of them speaks PCI Express, it will be PCI Express. So completely leverage PCI Express infrastructure, and there is goodness there, because as we saw, PCI Express has been pretty good in terms of delivering power efficient bandwidth, and also we want to be able to use the pins in a in a fashion where you don't have to dedicate special pins for CXL and special pins for PCIe. They're all plug and play. That helps with the ease of platform design and also more adoption. So CXL has been defined ground up to address the challenges in the evolving compute landscape by making heterogeneous computing as well as different types of memory efficient. We talked about how it is built on top of PCI infrastructure. There are 3 protocols in CXL. The CXL.io part of that protocol stack is basically the traditional PCI Express, where it's used for things like device discovery, configuration, initialization, interrupt, direct memory access, the producer consumer semantics we talked about, address translation services, all of those gets used. in addition to that, and that's a mandatory protocol. So what it means is that you can leverage the existing PCIe services and management, and that includes NVMe Express. Now, CXL.cache, it's an optional protocol for a device. It allows a device to cache the system memory in a coherent and low latency manner. CXL.mem is also a protocol that's optional on the device. It allows for the processor as well as CXL devices to access the device attached memory coherently. The second leg of CXL approach is low latency. Latency is critical. It's a critical component to ensure that system is performing well. So what kind of latency are we targeting? We are expecting latency in the range of existing symmetric cache coherency protocol. So for us, it will be like the ultrapath interconnect UPI protocol. So specification does provide guidance. For example, on a Snoop pin-to-pin latency, you are expected to respond within 50 nanoseconds. A memory access pin-to-pin from a device point of view, we expect it to be 80 nanoseconds, right? So those are fairly aggressive latency goals that the spec lays out. And from a CPU load to use kind of number, we are expecting it to be in the 200 nanoseconds, less than 200 nanoseconds range, which is the same as what you would expect if you went across a UPI link. So CXL, the third aspect of CXL is it is an asymmetric protocol. So what it means is that protocol flows and message classes are different between host processor and devices. It's a conscious decision to keep the protocol simple and the implementation easy for the devices. Host processors, they have their proprietary home agent, which they need to have anyway for orchestrating cache coherency between the different CPU cores, the IO and all of that. Devices, on the other hand, they just participate in coherency protocol as a caching agent. They don't need to worry about orchestrating cache coherency, resolving conflicts. That's where the things start getting complex. Effectively, it's a very simple, messy protocol, modified, shared, exclusive, and invalidate. So it's very easy on the device side. And memory accesses, if you're doing, let's say, a memory device, it's all that you have to do is just access memory. There are a couple of metadata bits that you need to read and write, but that's about it. You don't have to worry about cache coherency at all. So asymmetric complexity is key for us to make sure that we get wide traction in the ecosystem and also ensure that interoperability is there. Now, here are some typical usage models for CXL 1.0 and 1.1. There are three types of devices, type 1, type 2, type 3. Example of a type 1 device is a SmartNIC or an accelerator. It uses the IO and caching semantics. Here you would use IO for doing bulk transfers. You would use caching for things like advanced atomic support or things if you're doing, let's say, a partition global address space, NIC, PGAS ordering enforcement, because PGAS ordering is different than PCI Express ordering semantics. So if you are doing a PGAS NIC, what would happen is you would wait for your read to complete before you would issue a write, because in the PCI Express fabric, they can get reordered. So you, as a SmartNIC, you could prefetch all of those locations and complete the transactions in order in your local cache. So that helps with respect to the throughput. In the type 2 example, those are like things like your GPU, dense compute, where the device also has memory attached to it. And the processor is collaboratively processing the data with one or more of these devices. And not only do these devices have to cache the data in the CPU, but also, they can produce results and data structures that exist within the devices that the CPU can occasionally access, and it will do so using caching semantics. So instead of moving data structures back and forth like you would in a PCI Express model, because it's non-coherent, here cache coherency helps you because you can seamlessly start doing parallel processing effectively across heterogeneous devices. Last but not the least is the memory buffers, right? And possibly of a lot more interest to this audience here. Given that SerDes is very bandwidth efficient per pin, right? I mean, we are talking about 32 gig going to 64 gig for every lane, and a lane is 4 pins, right? Two out, 2 in, which means 64 gig out and 64 gig in. That bandwidth efficiency is really hard to beat, right, with any parallel bus like a DDR bus. So you can get memory bandwidth and memory capacity expansion. And this enables us to do heterogeneous memory, including persistent memory, multiple memory hierarchies, since the memory controller is on the device side. And also of importance is that type 2 can be deployed in some of the traditional memory devices where we can offer even more compelling value proposition that we will talk about in a few slides. Now let's look into what is CXL 2.0 bringing to the picture. 2.0 enables full backwards compatibility with 1.1. CXL 1.1 was based on a single node. 2.0, what it does is it enables resources to be pooled across multiple hosts, like you see here. So, remember the problem that I talked about where every node had its captive memory. With this, you got memory that can be assigned to any of these hosts. And CXL 2.0 defines it in a way where the device is going to ensure isolation. There is a standardized fabric manager to orchestrate all of that. So managed hot plug flows, switching, pooling, most importantly, for making sure that we are getting at least at a rack scale level of resources, right? You could have accelerators that are common in the pool at any given point of time. They might be assigned to one host, but let's say a host needs 5 accelerators, it can go to the pool, pick 5 of them. Once it is done, it can release them back to the pool and somebody else can pick it up, right? So memory can be pooled, accelerators can be pooled. Effectively, what we have done is IO and memory resources can be put in a pool. And there is Fabric Manager to orchestrate that. CXL has defined software API for those devices. And we also have done security enhancement, things like, encryption, authentication, all that good stuff is there with CXL 2.0, in addition to what existed in CXL 1.0 and 1.1, which was device level TLB. And, in summary, CXL 2.0 is going from node level to rack level connectivity. Disaggregated system and with CXL is where CXL is moving, and going forward, I can assume you can assume that we are going to enhance it even further. Now let's look into some of the memory and storage innovations that is made possible with CXL. So CXL provides a media independent memory interface with coherency extensions, right? Like we saw on top of the PCI Express stuff, we got and PCI Express functions and PCI Express services. We can take advantage of the device management of PCI Express, like NVM Express. All of those things are there. With those are preserved. In addition to that, we added the coherency and memory semantics, which are basically the load store semantics. So what does that really mean for us, right? The picture here on the right shows the memory hierarchy, right? We have load store semantics that covers DRAM, NRAM, MRAM, storage class memories, all of those. What CXL enables us to do is to move the storage class memory into that cacheable space. NAND is accessed through different semantics like files, objects, blocks that are connected through PCI Express. These two semantics are shown by this semantics wall in the diagram. CXL enables storage class memory to be mapped into the cacheable space. As a result, CXL can span DRAM, NRAM, MRAM, and storage class memories through the .io semantics as shown here on the picture here. One can connect to DRAM memory using CXL.memory semantics. Storage class memory can be accessed both through CXL.memory for cacheable accesses and through CXL.io and possibly using NVM Express infrastructure with DMA type operations. And NAND can similarly be accessed by either mechanism. CXL enables this new compute and memory architectures with the memory and coherency extensions that we talked about. Now, one can extend memory hierarchy to include the storage class memory and even NAND using CXL because then you're having a two-tier kind of a memory structure, right? You're using the DRAM as effectively the memory side cache, and then having a bunch of storage class memory that backs that, and they're all mapped into the system memory space. So as a result, what happens is CXL is providing additive bandwidth and capacity over traditional DIMMs across multiple types of memory and hierarchy without interfering with them, right? So this is an independent type, and you can just build heterogeneous memory component in the system and map them into the system memory space. Now, the other advantage of CXL is its PCIe form factor. So what that means is we are no longer constrained by considerations such as consuming a precious DIMM slot and having the power constraint of 15 watt of a DIMM slot. So, we have lots of form factors like we saw earlier. We can enable higher power profile like 25 plus watt, and the benefits from leveraging PCI Express just doesn't stop there. We get standard device discovery, configuration, management. We got the software leverage from PCI drivers. We got ACPI, things like heterogeneous memory attribute table, HMAT, to describe the properties of that memory. What is the latency? What is the bandwidth? All of those characteristics. We can have DMA engine for doing data move. We can have IO virtualization from PCI Express. So all of these benefits of PCI Express stays, but at the same time, because of the coherency and memory, we are able to map memory into the coherent space and do memory tiering and do a lot of innovations using CXL. Now let's look into some of the applications like capacity and bandwidth expansion. Now, as we had discussed before, DRAM memory can be behind CXL since memory bandwidth and capacity increases linearly with core count, and different customers have different needs for the core count. One has to build today multiple platforms with different number of DIMM slots to satisfy those requirements. However, with CXL, what can happen is that you can envision a common platform. The number of we have a lot of PCI Express slots, which can be CXL slots, right? They're all interchangeable. You can convert some of them to have memory for those customers that need higher core count and hence more memory. You got basically the same platform, the same layout, just you're putting different types of CPU, and accordingly you're putting in more number of CXL based memory like we saw on the picture here on the left. CXL, so this what it does fundamentally is it decouples the compute from the traditional DIMM memory bandwidth and capacity. CXL offers that bandwidth and scaling with the width and the frequency. So unlike traditional memory, one can allocate different bandwidth with the same capacity by changing the link width and the link frequency. So as we had stated earlier, PCI data rates double every 2 to 3 years while staying within the power, performance, and channel reach, as well as the cost profile. So today, one can get 32 gigabytes per second per direction on a by 8 Gen 5. You can get the same bandwidth with a by 4 at 16 giga transfers per second once you go to PCI Express 6.0. CXL memory efficiency is in the 90% range, which means that you basically get most of that raw bandwidth. You can realize it. So if you consider, let's say, a by 8 CXL link running at 64 giga transfers per second, that is 64 gigabytes per second per direction. If you consider a by 16 at 64 giga transfers per second, PCI Gen 6, that basically nets you 128 gigabytes per second per direction, or a terabit per second per direction, right? There's a factor of 8 between the byte and the bit. So there's a lot of bandwidth, and you got the best power efficiency in the industry. Now, the other benefit of CXL is the pin efficiency. DDR requires a lot of pins. The pin growth in CPU packages by increasing the number of memory channels to sustain core performance, it's just not a sustainable thing in the long run. We have to move to SerDes-based thing, and this is where CXL is designed to help, right? Initially, it can work in conjunction with it. Maybe over time, everything moves to CXL. You got on-package memory, and everything, the rest of it off-package is CXL. That can very well happen. Maybe not in the next 2 years, maybe in the next 5 or 6 years. So these are some of the things. And then, of course, you got backwards compatibility. So every time you change a CPU, you don't have to throw away your DIMMs. Then backwards compatibility ensures that, you can plug in the old CXL based memory and it will still work. This is very unlike the DDR world. And of course, you got all the form factor advantages that we just talked about, right? So let's look into some of the persistent memory type of innovations that are possible with CXL. There is the NVDIMM. My prediction is NVDIMM will move to CXL with, DRAM backed by some storage class memory or NAND. the pros are it is serviceable, right? You cannot service from a DIMM slot today. PCI Express, like you see some of the form factors examples here on the over here, those are very serviceable, right? You could remove them. You can have multi-headed structure, so that way, if one server fails, you got access to the to that NVDIMM type of memory from another server. You got a power profile advantage. Most importantly, you freed up a DIMM slot. Persistent memory now is being cacheable. So, all of this, while we maintain the hot plug and serviceability and the multi-headedness for that you get. So you basically are getting the best of both the worlds, right? You're getting all the PCI Express goodness, and at the same time, you're bringing in the cacheability thing. You got the failover guarantee, you got the serviceability guarantee. And we will see multi-level memory hierarchy with larger capacity. So as I was telling you earlier, you can have a CXL device, which can have DDR, for example, and it can have some kind of a NAND, and the whole thing might get mapped into the coherent space. And this DDR could just be a 2-level memory for capacity, and to hide the latency to get to the NAND memory. You can also do things like you can put an acceleration component in the front, and with the .cache semantics especially, you got access to memory. This bandwidth over on the CXL is premium, but you got much wider devices that are connected to the CXL type 2 device in this example. And you can do a lot of computational offload. So that's being possible. So, accelerator engines with near memory processing, that's a compelling innovation that can happen with CXL. And again, that's being made possible because of coherency semantics. CPU can do some, for example, you're doing a search, it could just ask the CXL device to do the search and maybe put the results somewhere else, and then the CPU can continue from there on. So a lot of this goodness comes with Compute Express Link. Continuing on, the other thing is computational storage. And that's a compelling new use case. So imagine, like we were talking about, putting an accelerator in front of this memory. You can do things like compression. You can do things like encryption. You can do things like computation for reliability, like RAID 5, RAID 6, right? You don't have to involve the CPU. You don't have to go across multiple DIMMs to do those. You can just have the device take care of it, and it can manage that because it has got all the coherency semantics. It can go and access other memory locations if need be, and things like that. So a lot of these things can happen. You can do compaction for key value store. You can do search engine. You can do vector processing for your artificial intelligence and machine learning applications, right? Anytime you got coherency semantics, anytime your device has access to memory the same way that the CPU has, the possibilities are just endless. It can be whatever we can imagine, right? And when you do that, and you do that in an open slot like CXL, it's an open standard. It's guaranteed to be backwards compatible as it moves forward. People will innovate. We have seen that happen time and again with PCI Express, with USB. This is just going to take off, and it will be really good in terms of solving a lot of interesting problems in a very power efficient manner, reducing the total cost of ownership. So, bottom line is, and all of these, while we can still leverage the PCIe services like NVMe Express, we don't have to throw everything. The beauty of this is that we can build all of these value add services and systems on the existing infrastructure, and don't have to throw away years of and decades of work, and you can just do things in an incremental fashion, but very effective. So this slide offers a view of how to treat the storage class memory as a byte addressable data store with storage style data management and protection services while being accessible through the load store semantics of CXL, right? So, you got your system-wide architecture level scaling challenges. You got byte addressability, means you got load store access, you got cacheability. This has to be scalable to petabytes of memory, low latency, especially when you're going across a cluster, let's say in a rack or across pods, right? You can get all of that access. And you can still continue with the semantics, DMZ, right? You can go, this part is cacheable and this part is just your block accessible, and you got that whole access across the system, and now you got access to petabytes and petabytes of data that can be cacheable. CXL enables us to extend load store interconnect across multiple hosts. This is a fundamental paradigm shift, since load store semantics so far has been constrained to captive resources, whether it is processing or IO or memory or storage, all contained within one host. Composable disaggregated infrastructure at the rack level and potentially across racks into the pods is essential to realize the data center of the future vision. That vision is represented pictorially here. We have pools of compute nodes, multi-tiered memory, XPUs for acceleration, and storage. An infrastructure processing unit acts as the connection to the networking fabric. Each of these entities are connected through CXL, which is the load store IO fabric. This can be at a rack level or even at a pod level. The goal is to deliver almost identical performance per watt as independent servers. Going forward, we need to enhance this usage model with shared memory, message passing, and atomics among these nodes through CXL to encompass new usage models and segments requiring high performance computing. We need to nurture the synergy between networking fabrics and load store interconnects so that we can interoperate seamlessly and provide the same look and feel to our end users, but with different performance characteristics. We already have the necessary constructs like Fabric Manager, multi-head, multi-domain, atomic support, persistence flows, SmartNIC with optimized flows to access system memory without involving the host. We could do things like VM migration very easily with this kind of a fabric within, for example, a rack. We have a lot of challenges. We need to ensure that we are taking the learnings of our initial CXL implementations into account as we move forward. One of the important challenges is performance, namely latency and bandwidth. These are two sides of the same coin. As we had discussed, access latency of direct attached CXL device for load to use is less than 200 nanoseconds, similar to an UPI access. If we go through a single level of switching, we will probably add around 100 nanosecond latency. Low latency switches are absolutely critical to this vision. These accesses through the switches can leverage the NUMA optimization we have accomplished with SMP multiprocessing. The other aspect is bandwidth. With 64 giga transfers per second and hundreds of lanes per CPU socket, that's not going to be a bottleneck. We can aggregate bandwidth through multiple sets of switches. A rack worth of resources are fairly accessible using a single level of switch with 128 lanes, assuming by 4 ports. With 2 levels of switches, the connectivity goes up as a square and the latency increases, of course, by another 100 nanoseconds. Now we can potentially cover multiple racks in a pod within the same kind of SMP latency constructs. With increased nodes connected through CXL, we need to be careful with the blast radius. Unlike networking, we cannot have a software-based recovery mechanism. We have to design systems that have an acceptable fit, which is failure in time. We have to design shared parts with the lowest possible fit. We also have to ensure containment as well as quality of service across multiple domains that are accessing resources through the same silicon. Co-packaged optics can help with the reach going forward. Last but not the least, software. Everything from management to orchestration to resource allocation to RAS to migration, we need to have the seamless experience for our users. In summary, we have a lot of opportunities to shape the data center of the future by working collaboratively across disciplines and organizations. Together, we can overcome the challenges as they may come and keep the virtuous cycle of innovation going on in the cloud segment as well as other segments. Thank you very much.